All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. I see a few people have joined us already. I'm Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, and happy 2025. I hope you are having an amazing year and an amazing start to the year and had a great holiday season as well. So while we're waiting for people to join in, if you could just leave me a comment, let me know where are you joining from. Uh, what kind of role are you in? Are you in a business analyst role? Are you pursuing a business analyst role? Maybe you're in another role doing some business analysis and you're just excited to be here. Uh, I saw that we have somebody who is a past student of the Business Analyst Blueprint. Welcome. And is also specialized in the trucking sector. That sounds really, really interesting. So, welcome, Daryl. Great to have you here. And so far, let me see. I'm seeing the comments on LinkedIn. I just want to make sure I can also see them in my chat within the streaming tool. That'll also help me make sure that I'm really, truly live. All right, there we go. Thank you, Daryl, from Calgary, Alberta. It's probably chillier there than here, though we're having a very chilly day here in North Carolina. It's like I woke up and walked my daughter to the bus stop. It was like 24 degrees Fahrenheit, which is unseasonably cold here. Hi, Lindsay from Vancouver and Namsa from South Africa. A VSA based in Texas, New Hampshire. Kathy, welcome. Emmanuel, welcome. All right, so great to hear you or to see you and to also know that you can see me. So just a little bit about me and Bridging the Gap. I have over 20 years of experience as a business analyst, consultant, hiring manager, trainer, career coach. I've seen business analysis from a lot of different angles. These days, I am mostly focused through my work at Bridging the Gap, which is bridgingthegap.com, offering resources to help business analysts start, succeed, and excel in their business analyst careers. One of those resources is my book, How to Start the Business Analyst Career. Also working on another book tentatively titled The Value Driven Business Analyst, which is hopefully going to come out sometime this year. And I'm the creator of the Business Analyst Blueprint Framework and Training Program. And today, Bridging the Gap is primarily a training company helping business analysts start, succeed, and thrive in their business analyst careers. But today we are here to talk about your goals for 2025 and how to achieve them with more ease. So as I stepped back into LinkedIn after the holiday break, I have been seeing a lot of posts about burnout and people really struggling with feeling like 2024 was a tough year, and that they were really burnt out at the end of it. Did anyone else deal with that in 2024? Just give a quick yes or a thumbs up in the chat if that was something that happened to you. 2024, I felt like I did pretty good with my burnout, but I'm actually a little bit nervous about it for 2025. I have some big goals myself, like speaking more, publishing my next book, which I mentioned, updating our training to integrate the possibilities of generative AI. And there are times I already feel overwhelmed and we've barely even gotten started, right? So when I get that feeling, I come back to the tools that I am going to teach you today. And I always feel recentered, grounded, and more spacious about my goals. So here we are in 2025, and I've been noodling on this phrase, thrive in 2025. So I actually want you to help you thrive in your career goals and really think about this from not the perspective of just doing more, working harder, making it bigger, better, all of the pressure, right? But how do we also allow it to be a little bit easier? So I'm seeing some comments, burnout here. Gerald says, yes, weirdly, let me just highlight this one. Weirdly, director really applying rush to get projects finished before end of the year. That is kind of the worst. That happens quite often. And then it really interferes with holiday season and the ability to have kind of downtime and family time and all of that. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you today, though, is a 7-step strategy to help you figure out how to achieve your goals with more ease. So as we dive in, also let me know in the chat, do you already have a big goal that you're focused on this year? What is that? Wait, what is the goal that you're focused on? And if you're not clear, just take a minute. Like, what do you actually want? What does success look like for you? Let go of what you think is possible and just dial into what you really, really want. One of my favorite questions to ask here is, if anything were possible, what would I want out of my fill in the blank? It could be out of my health, out of my career, out of my business, right? Out of my family life. If anything were possible, because so often we're going to talk about this, we already think in terms of constraints, right? We think in terms of kind of these external constraints that we put on ourselves. So, if anything were possible, what would I want? Is it a specific promotion? Is it specific kind of project work? Is there a certification that you want to achieve? Is there an impact that you want to make, or a specific kind of impact? One goal I'm working on this year is to weave social justice and sustainability principles into the work I'm doing within business analysis, right? And that's it's impacting the BA community, but it's also showing up in the way that I want to show up in the world, and just weaving it into what I'm already doing. So I'm seeing Jared says, get out of the IT industry. So that's an interesting one, right? So when we think about our goals, we want to frame them in positive ways. So thank you so much for sharing that, Jared, because this is a great teaching example. So you want, like, get out of the industry. IT industry is good clarity. Like, we often understand what we don't want. What do you want? Like, what do you want to be in, or what type of role do you want to be in? Paint the picture in your mind of what that role looks like that is not the IT. And then, interestingly, here we have Michael, who wants to become an IT consultant, right? So this is also so beautiful, because we have, back-to-back comments with very different goals. Your goals are your own. You get to choose, and all goals are okay. Cheryl says, just move to a product managed role versus a project managed. Oh, I've been hearing a lot about this. That's a really exciting move, and can also be really overwhelming. So congratulations, Cheryl, and thank you for sharing that. Okay, so you might be really clear, or you might not. Either way, let's just go through a short visualization together to help you uncover what your goals might be. Or if you're really clear on what they are, you can use this to deepen your commitment and sort of your energetic presence to the goals you already have. Okay, so let's just pause, take a few breaths. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, feel free to do so. I'm standing, so I'll probably be opening mine just to keep my sense of balance. But ground yourself into your chair, the floor, the earth. Even if you are on the top floor of a 20-story building, you are still held into the foundation of the earth below you. Now envision a moment in December of 2025. So 11 and a half months from now. It's your last workday of the year. You're closing your laptop or walking out of the office. Before you start your festivities, you just take a few moments and reflect on your year. What are you most proud of? What impact did you make this year? What's your title? What's your salary? What kind of projects did you work on? What challenges did you overcome? What professional development did you engage in? What new connections did you make? Who are you in deeper connection with, and why? And just take a moment to soak it all in, feel that sense of accomplishment, feel that sense of pride, feel the sense of gratitude, right? How does it feel to be closing the year? How can you allow that energy to be present in you right now? And how can you pull out all the positives that were, it's sometimes negatives come up too, but those positive feelings and just see those as inevitable. Hold them with certainty. And when you're ready, come on back. Might need to wiggle your toes or kind of move around a little bit, get back into your body. And feel free again to share in the chat if something else came up from you or if there's just one goal that you're focusing on. Queenie or Guile, apologize. Sense of gratitude. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you for sharing. And Daryl says mentoring two young IT coworkers. Mentoring is such a great impact. So thank you for that work, Daryl. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that's step one is just to get clear on your goal. Now, step two is to get clear on the impact of your goal. And we do this with stakeholders and their requirements all the time. What is the most common question we need to ask as business analysts, right? People come to us with solutions and we need to say, why? Why is this important? What's the business objective behind this? What problem are we trying to solve? We want to do the same thing with our goals. In many ways, our goals are solutions, right? So what does this goal mean to you? One of the reasons I think that we get burnt out, or one of the reasons I know I have gotten burnt out, is that we are going for other people's goals, or we go with what we think our goals should be. I spent years building a version of the Bridging the Gap business that took me out of teaching, out of speaking, and was bigger than it needed to be to support my lifestyle, to support the team but mostly to support the team that were doing all the things I thought I didn't want to do. And then it just didn't work out the way I expected. And I was totally burnt out, right? When I stepped back to reflect on what happened, I realized I had been spent several years chasing a dream that wasn't mine. And the same thing happened to me about 15 years earlier in corporate as well. Um, Not so much the chasing. I sort of was handed one opportunity after another. I was sort of chasing just growth and expansion and more. And I ended up in a role in a toxic situation and was completely burnt out. But it was like, oh, I never actually set the goal to be a director of a 15-person team and to lead these specific kinds of projects, right? I had gotten off track because I wasn't in touch with why I wanted what was happening to me. And I didn't actually want some of what was happening. I just kept saying yes to the things that were coming up in front of me, which is a great way to build a lot of momentum. But there becomes a point where you have enough leverage that you get to make a different choice, right? And so this is why you need such a strong personal why for your goals and to understand what that goal actually means to you. And also, I want to acknowledge that most of us are actually more motivated by helping others. So, what does it mean to you or me, right? Or what does it mean to the other people in your life, the other people in your office, the other people on your teams, the people that you're mentoring, the stakeholders in your group that you're helping impact their lives, the technology developers that have clear requirements, the family members that get to see you on the weekends, right? So all of the people around you. I mentioned my book as a big goal for this year. And when I think about publishing my book, there's like some ego parts of it, right? Like, of course, getting my work out there, claiming my space in the BA profession, teaching my way of doing business analysis, and perhaps even like having a milestone like a bestseller status or a certain number of copies sold, right? Those are all motivating. But when I really think about the impact, it's like, who is going to be sitting and reading this book? Right? What is the contribution I can make to the profession? And that makes it even more exciting. So, for example, if you have a goal to get a promotion, you can be really excited about the salary, the respect that comes with that title, the exciting projects you're going to get to work on. And you can also see how you can make a bigger impact, solve bigger problems, have more domain within the organization or influence within the organization to guide how business analysis is done, what the practices are, and that can have a ripple effect to other people on your team, to the customers that use your products. Like the ripple effect of that is huge, right? And so getting in touch with both your personal why, but also the impact outside of yourself can be really motivating. So I would love as well to hear from you in the chat. What is the impact of your goal? What does it really mean to you and to the others that you work with? So this is going to be your fuel that energizes your work towards the goal. And that energy fuels you, right? And so that makes your goal easier, but it also draws resources to you that make your path easier. And we're going to talk to that in a minute here. All right. Daryl says he's moving back to consulting and contracting for 5 years. After contracting, moving back to full time. Yeah, that can be a great feeling to have that sense of stability, somewhat of security, right? And just knowing kind of what the landscape looks like for the year versus contracting and consulting, always focused on needing to find the next thing. So the next question that's really important to ask yourself, and that's step 3. So we talked 1, get clear on your goal. 2, the impact of your goal. Step 3 is what is holding you back. And so this is where I'm going to give you permission to go a bit negative. I am a very positive person. I really take care of my positive focus. But one way I do that is giving myself space to go through the negative side of things. Because the most natural thing in the world is to dream about what's possible and then say, but that's not possible for me because my company doesn't have a career path, or it's going to take too much time, or I don't have the right skills, right? What is the but that's coming up? And what can happen too is that you get so wrapped up in the truth of these false stories that you don't even allow yourself to dream. So if you are having trouble setting a goal and literally nothing came up to you when you envision the end of 2025, you might need to start here and consider first what's holding you back and rewrite some of those stories. Right. So at its essence, though, you have to give yourself, when you set a big goal, space to think through all the things that could go wrong and give a voice to all the reasons it might not work out. And this is not to allow them to happen. It's so that you can see what's true and what's not true. So for me, as I start to talk about social justice issues, like real fears I have are losing followers who don't share those values, looking performative, right? Not doing enough, getting called out or canceled if I say something the wrong way, right? Those are all valid, or they're all fears and they could happen. When I think about speaking, I get really nervous about the time commitment. So I actually sat down and mapped out some boundaries, how often I would speak in terms of how many times a week, what the time frames I'm available. And it turned out, I forget, I did the math, but it was something like 70 to 100 times. Like with all my boundaries in place, I had 70 to 100 slots. And my goal was to speak 20 times this year. I was like, oh, obviously I have space for this, right? So that was a fear. I was really nervous about the time commitment until I looked how that would actually fit into my weeks and my months and set some boundaries that made it feel easy enough for me. So whatever is coming up for you, and I won't make it share in the chat, but I always love to hear things that are coming up because it's like great to be able to say, this is coming up and it's not real, right? But for whatever's coming up, you get to look at it. Is this BS? Is it a false story that I'm holding? Is this something I actually need to do something about? What's the worst thing that could happen if I achieve this goal? Right. And so a lot of VAs worry about the time commitment, and that's totally valid. Um, we have normalized a culture where when it comes to promotions and salary increases and high impact projects, we've normalized overworking, right? So the flip side of that, though, is what boundaries would you want to set around your time to feel good for going more? Like, I'll only take that when I can leave at 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock, whatever that time is every day, so that I can see my kids' soccer games or be with my family for dinner, like whatever it is that's important to you. And the truth is, the counterintuitive truth is, as you rise and get promoted, you often have more leverage with your time. You earn more credibility, more trust. You have team to draw on. You have resources to leverage. And so often moving up can come with more time freedom. Might not be what we see, right? Because it's not everybody thinks this way. A lot of people have the more money, more time mindset. And so they make more money and they start working more hours, right? And they just do it because they think they have to. Look at that truth. Is that really what's needed to succeed in that role? It could be true, but it might not be. So for me in like social justice, the issue, likely I will alienate a few people, and I'm okay with that, right? And I could have something negative happen, and like I'll deal with that when I get there. Now, I want to just say on this point too that there are systemic issues or even corporate issues. So there are aspects of our external circumstances that we cannot control and that make certain opportunities more difficult for certain people rather than other people. And so the point of what I want to share here is not to try to sugarcoat that or overwrite that or gloss over that as a reality. But the part that you can control is your inner thoughts around that, your beliefs around that. Um, and then how can I best use my skills and abilities to navigate the reality of the circumstance that I'm in? So, in the example, say, of an organization not having a career path, you can choose to propose a career path. You can choose to look at the other titles in your organization. You can choose to move organizations. You can choose to find ways to continue to expand your responsibilities within the title that you have, if the responsibilities are the most important part to you, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can choose to navigate within some of those situations. All right, we've had a lot of shares from the chat here. So I want to go back, and then some of these are for step 2 as well. So Jared says he wants to have his own business out of IT. It's exciting. Vandana says, my goal is to get a job as I got laid off next year. All my thoughts are with you. Uh, my goal is to take a position as a VA. Exciting. Lindsay says, what's holding me back is clarity and confidence in my goal. So that's where, like, really maybe starting with the why, the impact instead of the goal, right? So what's the impact that you want? What are some of the other things that you want? And seeing, what goals would come from that versus the other way around. Okay. Judy, what's holding me back? Don't know where to find clients. Yeah, so feel free to share a bit more about that, and we can see if we can do some brainstorming around that here when we get to the strategy section. Let's see. My goal is to get certified. Congratulations, Emmanuel. FC says, I want to see a roadmap for someone coming from 11 years of customer service to BA. I'm not sure if it's 11 years, but if you type bridgingthegap.com and then Roshni, Roshni, that is a woman who was part of our programs who was a customer service professional and moved into business analysis. And her success story is super, super inspiring. Okay. So, we don't want to let these, I think we just need the point about the step 3 of what's holding you back is we're going to have these thoughts running in the background, whether we acknowledge them or not. So when you write them down or speak them, you get to then look at, is this true or is this not true? Is this part of the reality I'm in or is this not part of the reality I am? And often when I do this, 80% is stuff that's just not really true at all. It's just the stories in my head, right? And there's like 10% that is things that could happen and that I have no control over, and that I just intentionally decide not to have hold me back, right? I'll deal with that when it comes or if it comes. And then there's 10% that I can actually put a strategy around. So that was like me with the book, right? So, or me with the speaking. Like, yeah, I actually could feel like it's going to take too much time. So let me add some boundaries of how many weeks, how many times per week, kind of what this looks like. And then that allowed me to feel really good about it. So sometimes, there's that piece that you just need to proactively deal with versus allow to hold you back. So it can be a really great exercise. All right. So step one for those joining us is get clear on your goal. Two, what's the impact of that goal? And three, what's holding you back from achieving that goal, or what are sort of negative beliefs around that goal? And number four is to evaluate your resources. So the most natural thing to do is to launch into planning mode, right? What do I need to do to make this goal happen? Let me start taking action right away. Boom, boom, boom. That's again how we get overwhelmed and burnt out. So planning is a lot easier when you first start by acknowledging the resources that you already have to support you. So is there anyone in your network that can support you? What financial and time resources do you have to apply towards this goal? What tangible items could be leveraged to support this goal? Like most of us here probably have some sort of computing device, right? Maybe a desk to sit at or a workspace to work from, right? Like what physical items, books that might be on your bookshelf, journals that you can write in, like what tangible items do you have? Items that could be sold to free up financial resources. It's another way to think of that one. What information and knowledge do you already possess? And this is really, really important, right? One pattern I see is that a lot of VAs don't even realize the value of the skills that they already have. And so, one thing I'm going to share with you is that we have this, I'm going to put it in our streaming software first, and then I'm also going to go ahead and add it in LinkedIn. We have this free resource called the Business Analyst Skills Assessment, and it's a great way to help you quantify your skill set. So it goes through all the foundational skills of a business analyst, and it gives you some tables and assessments to do to help you self-identify what skills you have. And if you're watching the replay, there'll be a link below the video. But really think of that as a treasure hunt, right? What skills do I have that I didn't even know I could apply towards this next goal? Super, super valuable to understand the value of your skills. And if you're going after a particularly big goal, you might want to even think of it as a treasure hunt to go on resources to support you. This could be funding in unexpected places, like a grant or a team budget that nobody is using. Have you asked your manager if there's a professional development fund? Or is there a consulting fund that if you were taking on a skill that would be done by a consultant could be used to train you in that skill? Right? Is there a gift card that you got for the holidays or you got lost for the holidays, right? And haven't used yet that you could use to repurpose for something that you were going to buy anyways, and then have free some resources up for something that would support your goal. It could also be something much more simple, like a candle that you burn as a reminder of your goal, or a talisman that you repurpose, right? So just things that you can use as acknowledgments of where you want to head. So when it comes to career goals in business analysis, I do see that a lot of BAs can benefit from some kind of professional training. Earlier this week, I was speaking to an aspiring BA who didn't have much experience, and she asked about how to feel confident in her first position. She had a lot of answers, she knew what to do, but she had never actually done it on the job. And I shared my experience in my first role. I had a mentor, my team had a set of templates. I used books to guide me on my first project, right? I did not do it alone. Nobody does it alone. This is one reason we include both templates and on the job coaching inside our flagship program called the Business Analyst Blueprint Training Program. I'm not going to share a whole lot about that today, but I do want you to know that if you're interested in having my support in the business analysis skill set and building out your business analysis skills, along with on the job coaching in office hours and forums, like you do have a way to get that. And I'm going to be hosting an office hours next week to talk more about that program. If you are on our email list, you will get an invite to that. And if you are not on our email list, I'm going to just drop another link in the chat real quick that would allow you to join us. You'll get the invite once you're on our email list. I think we're sending the first invite out tomorrow. Um, and that program is not just for new BAs. We have many experienced professionals in the program that are there to hone their skills and get support around the new challenges that pop up every time you get a new project or a new company or a new way of working. There's some new challenges. And we talk a lot about challenges and opportunities and how to handle the normal day-to-day things that come up in that program. Okay. So the most important thing, though, whether it's our community or another community, is that you find your community of support and consider what resources are available. Also, when you're on your email list, I send out videos, and we have a lot of videos and YouTube videos and blog posts around with additional resources as well. So just that feeling, though, of not having to do it all alone can bring a lot of peace and ease. Okay, so we've talked about clarifying your goal, the impact of the goal, what's holding you back, finding your resources. Now let's actually move to step 5 and mapping out a strategy. So we started the session visualizing the end of the year and looking back. So when you think about your strategy, I would suggest trying to plan from that energy of somebody who's already achieved that goal. Vision yourself in that state, the senior business analyst, the person who's earned the certification, right? The person who has that new role. What were the key steps that you took? I always forget to do this one. I feel like sometimes preparing for this, I'm like reminding myself of all the things I should do that I always forget to do. But when you're strategizing from your current reality, like going forward in your current energy, those steps are very different than when you put yourself in the future state and look backwards. And you just want to break that down into achievable pieces. So if it's a certification, look at what's the target date for sitting for the exam, and then how long do you need to study? What is the application process? What do you need to do to put together your application, and start mapping out those milestones, right? And giving time and attention to each of those milestones along the way. So break it down into two achievable pieces. It's more challenging with goals such as finding a new position, because there's so much of that that's not in your control, right? And I have, similar for me, like I've been on a huge journey with this book, trying to figure out where it's going to land from a publishing perspective. And I can write the book, I can prepare the proposal, I can reach out, but I can't actually I can actually self-publish it and I might go that route, but there's so many pieces I can't control. And so you want to definitely look at the pieces that you can control, like how many job applications are you doing? How are you preparing for your interviews? How are you reaching out personally, professional contacts, right? Like look at those milestones and build those in so that you're making progress each and every week towards that goal. And so the pieces that aren't in your goal, your control, this is where I like to use a technique that I learned from Kate Northrup. It's an Abraham Hicks exercise. It's a bit of a woo-woo exercise if you're woo-woo friendly, but basically you put those things on the universe's to-do list. So I do this on a weekly basis of things that I've just turned over because they're not in my control. For example, I book a lot of speaking opportunities from people who reach out to me to connect, right? That's one way the universe is showing up to support me. I'm preparing the presentations, I do some outreach, I'll post about it on LinkedIn, I'm speaking about it here, right? But then sometimes like new people connect and I'm like, oh, would you be interested in this? And we start a conversation. So, putting things on the universe's to-do list can help you kind of have that sense of control when there's not control, right? And so the trick to that, though, is being open enough to say yes when opportunities present themselves that might not look like what that you're expecting them to. And often, those opportunities come in interesting and unexpected ways. All right, so this would be a great time if anybody has any questions about their specific goal or what they should be doing to achieve their specific goal. I would really, really love to answer some of those. And I'm just going to look back through the comments real quickly to see if I've missed anything key. Um, my goal is to get a data analyst certification in Power BI. Amazing. Okay. Mary, my goal is to restart my career and get certifications. Okay. Okay. Um, Jared says, I was told those exact words by several hiring managers at Delta Airlines during interviews. I'm thinking that's like probably playing with the end in mind. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Thanks, David. Great to have you here. I'm going to just put David up on the page real quick. I mentioned a speaking gig earlier this week. David is hosting, I think, a 5-part business analysis summit. Feel free to put the link to register for your summit in the chat here if you want to. I know I was number 2, and there's 3 more coming. So a lot of great resource and doing incredible things for the community. So thanks for being here, David. Okay. Let's go into then step 6. And if there are challenges that come in about specific strategies, feel free to get those in as well. But what the next piece is to, you've got these strategies, you've got this do more, right? Here are the things I need to do to start to achieve my goal. So one of the ways we get burnt out is when we think of our goals as just having to be added on to everything else we are doing anyway. And we need to clear some space to allow room for growth. So that's what step 6 is to let go of what doesn't serve you anymore or what doesn't support your goal. So last year, I spent a lot of time writing my book. I had intended to do LinkedIn Lives every month. I think I did 5 in the first 6 or 7 months of the year, and then it just proved unsustainable. I had to let go of that so I could focus on the writing. This year, I'm focused on a lot of ways to speak to outside audiences to expand my reach. So I've penciled in 3 of these sessions where I do LinkedIn Lives. Also hosting a virtual open house, right, with our community to talk about the blueprint. And I'm tentatively, at least for the first few months, going to do those each month, right? So you need to create the space to allow for those things. What do you need to let go of to make space for your goal? Nature does this beautifully. Every fall, the leaves fall from the trees, right? Get composted into the soil. They release nutrients that support the tree and establishing new growth. Nature is cyclical and constantly letting go of what is no longer needed, and it gets released and recycled, composted and renewed. So some examples could include meetings you aren't needed for, communication channels that bog you down. I was teaching this concept once, and somebody's like, oh, I no longer need to be in these Slack channels talking about a product that I released several months ago and I'm not really actively supporting, right? It's just noise. It just fills up my Slack or my messaging bandwidth, and it's really not pieces I need to know or be on top of on a daily basis, right? Could be an email list or whatever those communication channels that you can opt out of. It could be projects that aren't aligned with the upskilling that you want to do or that aren't actually delivering value to the organization. It could be an administrative task. I remember coaching a business analyst who was rising into a leadership role, and she had started in an administrative role, and she was still completing her boss's expense reports, right? And there was kind of a cultural reason for that, but it was really time from her perspective to let that go, to pass that on to somebody new, right? And every time you pass on a task, it's a growth opportunity for someone else. That's how I got into the business analysis career. That's how I got into testing. And then how I got into business analysis was just volunteering to take on tasks that other people didn't have the capacity for, right? And that gets you, so we can hold a lot of guilt of like, oh, if I don't want to do it, who wants to do it? Actually, that task is a huge growth opportunity for somebody else, right? Who now has the trust of a senior leader to organize expenses. That could be a great opportunity for the right person. But this also applies to our documentation, right? So actually let me know what you might be ready to let go of, if it's a meeting, a communication channel, a task, a project, right? And also then thinking about documentation? Where can you simplify and streamline your requirements deliverables? Like at Bridging the Gap, we don't teach business requirements documents. Like I used to do these huge 50-page documents and of software requirements and then break all of those up into use cases. And we'd have 50, 60 use cases for a project, right? And it was a lot of redundant, overlapping, conflicting information. And to keep it all synced up was a lot of work. And now I teach a very streamlined scope statement that we break apart into business processes. We do use cases where they're needed and data models where they're needed, like picking and choosing those deliverables that are going to add the most value and move the project forward the fastest, right? So where are you over engineering your process would be another way to think about it. Or where are you making things too perfect before engaging stakeholders? Before the holidays, I think it was Black Metric shared a meme about like the annoying part of getting the lines to line up, right? When you're doing a visual model. And I was like, yeah, sometimes it's just actually important to not have the lines line up perfectly, right? I know that is so hard for everyone. But how much time do you put into getting those lines lined up, particularly on a model that's still rough, right? Still, where your goal is to get feedback from stakeholders. It's not the like final deliverable, right? And so that time early on could be better spent asking questions, getting that model in front of stakeholders. Just draw it up on the whiteboard or hand draw it to show that it's a work in progress, right? So that is another way to think about this too, is what do we really need to be doing to add value to our organizations? And there's always opportunities to let things go. Okay, so we have a couple up here. I want to share these because often what one person shares can help others. LinkedIn user says I could let go delegating some tasks to others, even at home. Yes, so this doesn't just have to be at work. When people join our training programs, I often say, what time are you going to set aside and what support do you need within your personal life, right? Is it a time where your partner can take the kids to sporting events and you have a few hours at home on your own to go through the materials? Is it support with dinners or appointments, right? So yes, definitely thinking about things you can delegate at home or even where you could hire support at home, regardless of your partnership situation. Let's see, Teams channels from Carolyn. It's a great one. Daryl says, good advice. Years ago, I was a dedicated programmer developer, and I volunteered for any task that got me away from my desk and out talking to coworkers. Yeah, so that is a great strategy to kind of get into new opportunities, right? And the one thing I want to say about this, Daryl, is like there's a point that this is my strategy too. And I shared a bit about kind of getting, saying yes to everything. And then there's a point that can start to take you off track, right? So being really aware of when have I said yes to too many things, and now I need to rework, which could be, or could have been in this case, letting go of some of the developer work so you can move more into BA related work. Okay. I'm thinking delegating caregiver responsibilities. Yep, to study. That sounds like a great approach. Let me know how that goes. Okay. Carolyn says, in one of my previous roles, I would say yes to anything and everything to be helpful. And I've learned to set boundaries and value my time. And I have had 2 promotions since. Thank you so much for sharing that, Carolyn, I think it's just such a testament to how we can hold ourselves back by being the jack of all trades and the expert in everything. And that actually dilutes our potency in terms of our effort, but it also distributes our value. And so we don't have the time and the focus to do the work that's really needed to be done because we're kind of scattered looking at so many things. So it's a huge testament to the value of that. Okay. All right, we have a big share here. Thank you for sharing this. So goals around certifications. That's a lot of certifications. I would recommend picking 1, maybe 2. Impact my family. You could get a little more specific around the positive impact for your family. What's holding me back? Resources. I think if you focus that in, the resources piece might help you a bit. And time management, motivation, may want to switch over to new roles, AI architect. Yeah, so if your real goal is to become an AI architect, what certification or training opportunity or qualification? I don't even think, I mean, there's a ton of certifications right now in AI, and they're all very, very like by design. They have to, AI is changing so fast. So, what is the thing that would help you get towards an AI architect role? It's probably working with AI in some way, taking a couple courses, learning more about it, but then doing some work around it and demonstrating some value in that skill set could take you much more quickly to that goal than focusing on like the whole list of certifications you had. Right. So we want to be really, really cognizant. That's where the why and the where are we headed can really help us filter our goals. Okay. So that was step 6, was letting go of what doesn't serve you. So step 7 is to actually take some action, right? So you have your goal, you know the impact of that goal, you have identified what's holding you back, you've gathered some resources, you've mapped out your strategy, you've cleared space by letting stuff go. So now you get to take some of those actions. What is, and before I say this, I just want to encourage you to make a very symbolic but important decision this week. I know it's already Thursday, but to let something go, right? So it doesn't have to be all the things, but is there a meeting you can decline, a communication channel, a meeting you can set up with your manager about delegating a task? Like choose one thing that you're going to let go and make sure by the end of the week you either let it go or have put in place some momentum to letting it go, right? And it can be important in terms of freeing up your time. It's also incredibly symbolic in that it energizes you forward towards where you're going versus where you've been. So I just didn't want to miss that point. And then similarly, one action that moves towards your goal. So what are some of the ideas that you have about what you could do first? Right? So share your ideas. Often those ideas inspire others. And one of my counterintuitive tips around this, especially if you're like not quite sure, is how small can you make that first step? Is it something you could do in the next 15 minutes or the 15 minutes after we're done here, right? Is it something you could do in an hour over the weekend? Right? So could you watch a new video on a technique? Could you download a template? Could you complete that skills assessment that we just talked about? Could you join a webinar in a new tool? Could you reach out to a potential connection? Those are often some of the most fruitful actions, is just outreach and connection, right? So what is the smallest piece that you can do first? And choose an action. If you're really struggling with what actions to take, look at where you have the most resources available and or the least resistance. So let it be the easiest thing. You don't have to do the hardest thing first. There's a lot of people who advise doing the hardest thing first, and there's good wisdom in that. Sometimes like doing the hardest thing first makes all the other things so much easier, right? And like gives you that sense of confidence. But if you are getting blocked by doing the hardest thing first, do the easiest possible thing first. And I remember reading this. This is kind of a funny story. I don't know if I should. Oh, I'll share this story. Okay, I was reading this book about how one small step can change your life. I think that was the title of the book. And at that time, I did not have a consistent like flossing practice, right, which is kind of disgusting. But I did not have and I was like, my smallest step is that every night I'm just going to floss in the middle of my two bottom teeth. Like, that is the only thing I have to do. I don't have to do anything else. And you know what happened? I committed to that, and within a week, of course, I was flossing my whole mouth regularly, and I've been doing it every night since. Like, it's very rare that I go to bed without flossing my teeth. But at the time, I didn't have that. So, I mean, that is an incredibly small step, right? Just flossing the middle tooth. But it got me into momentum, and it started to establish a habit that supported what I really wanted, which is to floss out my teeth. All right, a little bit of maybe too much information there, but that's how you can roll sometimes. Okay. The other thing that I would suggest around this is, as you start to take action, celebrate it as a win. In our programs, we start every office hour inviting people to share their wins. We have a dedicated space in our forums to share wins. And this is not just for the big wins like projects and promotions, like it's everything. A meeting that went well, an email you sent that kind of made your palm sweat, right? New responsibilities, or just kind of clarity on any aspect of your role. So as you take action, celebrate those wins, find your community you can cheer on together. It could just be one person that you're connecting with here that can, you can encourage each other on. And then expect the universe to start to meet you halfway. So again, when everything and anytime anything feels like too much, just put it on the universe's to-do list until it either gets done or you have the energy to do it or it becomes unnecessary. But again, realize those results might show up in a different way than you're expecting. So say you're seeking a new job, right? A few people have mentioned that. Um, and like maybe the first thing that will come will be a side consulting project, or it could be a contractor position when you really want a full-time position. Doesn't mean you have to accept the contractor position, but you could at least interview for it, research it, talk to people about it, right? That's all going to get you great experience. I often see these, and it could lead to other opportunities with that organization, other opportunities with that recruiter, right? So we often have to say yes at the beginning to things that don't look quite right when we're trying to create momentum, and then refine what we want based on what we learn as we go. And then as you build the momentum, your goals can start to get bigger, and honestly, your plans can get a little bit lighter, right? Because you are continuing to be lifted up and expanded by that. Okay. All right, I've got somebody else. My dad has told me once, floss only the teeth you want to keep. Yes. Thank you for that. Carolyn says, I've already silenced a couple of my team's channels I had where I could review updates for a project. Nothing to do with my work. That's amazing. Congratulations. Judy, my goal is to find new clients. First time in 8 years, clients not calling me, and 25 years of experience in CPA and business analysis and lots of data ERP certificates. Yeah, that is a challenging one, right? So that is where outreach, sharing your expertise in LinkedIn posts. Who could you reach out to past clients? My husband has a consulting and client-based practice, and anytime we're starting to look at cash flow and kind of what's happening in his business, he gets on the phone and just starts calling people that he's worked with in the past, and usually within a few weeks he can drum something up. So having that practice of reaching out and keeping in touch with past clients, as well as potentially reaching out to people that you connect with on LinkedIn, and just not in the spammy way. I get these spammy, I'm here to help you with this, but just, this is what I do. Is that something I can help you with? This is actually on my goals for this year too, to have a bit of outreach towards people in BA management and leadership positions, and to just reach out. Like, are you thinking about training for this year? Would you like to talk about opportunities? And it doesn't have to be pushy. It is salesy, but salesy in a service way. And it can be very easy to say no, easy for them to say no to, or easy to say yes to if it is something that's on their radar. So yeah, that's kind of some suggestions I have around that. I'll leave it for a second in case anybody has any last minute questions coming in. And while we're getting there, one last piece that I would love for you to share. All right, you have a process to follow. You don't have to do this all yourself. Thank you for being here and doing this work today. Business analysis and business analysts truly make the world a better place. And I am so excited to see you thrive in 2025. So, and I know in my heart that any ounce of energy that you pour into your goals has impacts that benefit all of us. And that's part of the fuel that lights me up on a day-to-day basis. But could you just drop one word in the chat, letting me know how you feel? What's changed or shifted for you? Right? I won't ask a bunch of questions because that makes it impossible to do it in one word. But how are you feeling now? And has anything changed or shifted? And again, if you're looking for resources, we have a lot of resources available on Bridging the Gap. I'm going to share our subscribe link again if you want to get on our email newsletter list. This will ensure you get the invite to next week's open house if you're interested in learning more about the training I offer inside the Business Analyst Blueprint. And I also share a bunch of videos and tips to our email list. So you never know if what I'm sharing is going to be the right resource that you happen to need to take your next step. And if you haven't already, please make sure we're connected on LinkedIn as well. You can follow me or you can send me a connection request. I will definitely accept it once we get off here. All right, so we've got Lindsay saying inspired. So great to see you, Lindsay. Pavan is motivated, inspired. Thank you. You're so welcome. We got a question from Lathabo. How can I leverage my business analysis skills and mindset to not only achieve my career goals, but help me set and achieve personal goals more effectively? Oh, that's such a fun and interesting question. It's really juicy. It's the same process we talked about here. So if you think back on what we just talked about, we're talking about it in career goals, like what's your goal? Why is it important? How are we going to get there? What resources do we have? Right. That same process is business analysis applied to our career goals. It's the same process you can use with your personal goals. So what's the outcome I want? What problem am I trying to solve? What's the specific milestones to help me get there? What are the requirements, right? You could do a gap analysis. You could do a SWOT analysis, all kinds of ways you can use your business analysis skills. Okay. Thank you for that question. See, we've got motivated and grateful. Emmanuel says, how do you build successful and sustainable connections with fellow BAs? So my most successful, sustainable connections that I have from a self-organizing perspective, we have some sort of a regular meetup. One of those groups, we meet every 3 to 4 months for a few hours and everybody gets a hot seat. We run it as a mastermind where everybody gets a certain amount of time to bring whatever issue they have and to get feedback from the group. Usually there's some sort of chat channel. So it could be a LinkedIn group, it could be a Facebook Messenger group, it could be a WhatsApp group. So you have regular time to meet virtually or face-to-face. One of my other groups meets every 2 weeks, and that is my main business group that I go back to bring big issues and get support and encouragement. So having a regular time to meet and then having a communication channel for in between those regular times. And so start looking for the people that you might want to have that kind of connection with. And that is something that happens within the business analysis community that we have as part of the Bridging the Gap programs as well, because we do meet monthly for our office hours and there is an online forum for connection in between. But it is something you can cultivate on your own by starting to reach out to people and just sharing your vision for that. Okay. Encouraged and grateful. Thank you so much. And a shout out here from Caroline. Thank you. Your site is amazing. Thank you for sharing everything. Yes, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. Understanding and articulating the impact of my goal was a big takeaway. You're so welcome for that. All right. Thanks, David. And Emmanuel says here, confidence is boosted. Thank you. You are so welcome. That is a great way to leave things. We are just about at the top of the hour. I hope you have an amazing 2025. Please continue to follow me for more resources. And if there's anything I can do to help you thrive in 2025, that doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well as it really happens in my head. If there's anything I can do to help you thrive in 2025, please do not hesitate to be in touch. Again, Laura Brandenburg with Bridging the Gap. Thank you so much for being here and doing what you do to support the business analysis community.